he punched out, I guess. So thank you. Okay, so yes, we are recording this session. If anybody has any issues with that, you can go ahead and mute your video. Okay. All right. So as we were talking yesterday about teaching at a distance, some of your students can do very, very well in an asynchronous mode using the tools that we learned yesterday about discussion boards and video lectures and so on. Others of your students are going to want to learn better with some interaction, the humanistic teachers, if you will. And so hopefully we'll be able to satisfy all the students with some combination of these two techniques. So we're going to look a little bit today on synchronous learning. And I'm going to start off with kind of a definition. We're going to lay some groundwork. And then I want to show you 3 different synchronous platforms. We're going to explore first Google Meet in a little bit more detail, not just from your perspective as a learner, but from your perspective as a teacher. Okay. Okay, I'm getting a few final people coming in. All right, and so here we go. Yesterday we started with the definition of asynchronous, and we said, you know, it was an activity in which the student goes through it at their own pace. They have to be disciplined. They have to have time management skills. They have to have the technology skills to be able to do what they need to do to bring the material, because you are not there. Okay, you can be there as an email resource. They can email you and ask you questions. Okay, but for the most part, they're on their own. I can't teach like that. I hate teaching like that. I want to have, at least in a distance course, some synchronous interaction with my students. And so synchronously, obviously what we're going to be doing is we're going to all be participating simultaneously. Okay. Now, if there's anything that you can say that was good about the COVID pandemic that's going on right now, maybe the only thing that you can say that might be good is that this could not have happened 10 years ago. Okay. If we'd have had this pandemic in 2010 or 2005, we would be in a whole different ball game than we are today. Why? Well, because look how far we've come in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years when it came to the kinds of technology that we have that can make a synchronous session happen. I mean, you know, we could not have done this with America Online, you know. We could not have done this with the first vestiges of bringing internet into the home with coaxial cable. We could not have done this with some of the computers, the laptops, the iPads, the iPhones, the devices that our students now have pretty ubiquitously in their home. It just would not have happened. And so while there is still this pervasive question of the digital divide that's going on between the haves and the have-nots, it is at least being remedied in large measure by the school districts that are, you know, that are planting laptop computers in the homes of their students. Some of them are dealing with the internet connections and so forth, but at least we have the facilities now generally to address this. It certainly is not resolved all the way. We're still going to have to think as teachers when we set up a synchronous session, what kind of technologies our students have. And so I always tell my undergrads and my master students, when you're teaching a class, you're planning to teach a class, you're on the schedule, you've got the names of your students, your first class is a couple of days or weeks away. Your first contact with your students ought to be with something that you know is there, like email, and your first contact needs to be some kind of a survey so that you can gauge the ability of your students that are coming into your classes. You need to be able to gauge their technology hardware, the software that they're using, and their skills. And so from a Deer Lakes District perspective, you did not, none of us had that real opportunity on March the 16th when we left on a Friday and came back on a Monday online. And it took, it took all of us a considerable amount of effort to figure out where we were. As a synchronous teacher, even more than asynchronous that we learned yesterday, you need to plan. You need to plan better. You need to plan not only for the resources and materials that you want your students to use in the classroom, but you need to plan for the interaction. Okay? It's not going to be an issue with you about scheduling specific times, at least not as much as it is with students that you might have in a cyber school, where they might literally be in different time zones. Okay. I think I mentioned we did a cyber training camp a couple of weeks ago. And when we started off, we said, look, we are going to start our synchronous virtual classroom at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I had a student email me later, and he said, I'm in San Diego. 9 o'clock Eastern is 6 o'clock my time. And I said, well, too bad. You live in San Diego. That's good enough for you. You ought to enjoy it. But we moved it to 10 o'clock, so we gave them a little bit. But I've actually had students from Hawaii, and Hawaii time is like 6 or 5 or 6 hours, depending on the time of year. And now that's a huge, huge difference. Some of us have students that are international students. Okay. And so, but even locally, like you guys, you need to at least think about the schedules that you create for teaching virtually. Okay. You can't assume that you can start virtually at 8 o'clock in the morning and it will be okay with everybody. So think about that. Some of the formats, the modalities of teaching synchronously, and we're going to cover 3 of those today, are basically broken out into these like 3 different areas. First of all, there are the software packages like Google Classroom and Google Meet that we're using this morning that are what we call the video conferencing webinar kind of platforms. The 2 most common, the one we're using and the one I'll show you a little bit later, is Zoom. And those 2 platforms are not the only 2. There's a number of others that will offer you these kinds of virtual formats. In a little different kind of a mode are the kinds of webinar features that are provided by learning management systems. Both Dr. Hanson and myself mentioned to you yesterday that Robert Morris uses Blackboard. Blackboard is used by thousands of K-12 districts as well. It's the platform of choice right now for a lot of the cyber schools, but it is an expensive platform. Depending on how many students you're hosting, at Robert Morris, I think the last time I looked at it, we were paying close to $300,000 a year for the Blackboard platform for about 4,500 students. So it just gives you an idea. But I'm going to show you the platform, the webinar features that are part of a learning management system this morning, just so that you can compare and contrast. I'm not, I'm certainly not a Blackboard salesman, but I just want you to be able to compare the three kinds of systems that might be available to you. You can also do a lot of virtual work just with a voice and text chat room. There's a lot of software packages out there that will do that for you. Okay, so let's look at some of the pluses and minuses of teaching synchronously. You could teach an entire class async, and we looked at some of the advantages and disadvantages of that yesterday. On the synchronous side, all of those students that you have in your class that we would tag after yesterday's session, we would tag as humanistic learners, the kind that like the personal interaction, that like the collaboration, that enjoy the interpersonal relationships that they have. I mean, that's one of the big things that we hear on the news every day. My child wants to go back because their friends are all there. They're, they want to work and deal with their peers. A synchronous learning environment for an online environment at least gives us some of that. Okay, we can actually build communities in a synchronous environment that there's no way we can do in an asynchronous one. On the downside, though, teaching synchronously takes time. Okay, it's a lot more time intensive than teaching asynchronously. You've got to deliver the lesson. You have got to provide that that lesson in an environment that, like this, takes a good deal amount of time, not just in the delivery, but in the preparation. And then what happens if a student is not there? Okay, you deal with this in a traditional classroom. If a student is absent, you have some work that they can do. You, in high school environment, maybe you work with them and say, hey, work with a friend that you have and get their notes. In a preschool, elementary school environment, you're dealing with kids, and maybe you send homework home with the parents, or you have to deal with that. In an online environment, if they miss the online session, what do? Okay, we're going to talk about some of that. It certainly is more expensive to teach synchronously. Okay, you've got to have all the equipment, you've got to have all of the resources, you've got to have the websites, the disk space, the IT people involved. We really can't teach synchronously anymore without the IT people being a huge support mechanism for what we're doing, whether they're helping students resolve technical issues, whether they're making sure that our networks are up and running, whether they're taking away firewalls that we need to teach something to our students, whatever it might be. The burden on our IT staff is much more when we're teaching synchronously than async. And then finally, we mentioned this issue of having to schedule. Okay, some tips for teaching successfully synchronously online. Okay, and as it would be in a traditional classroom, preparation is the key. Asynchronous, you're looking for feedback after the student watched your video or posted on the discussion board, okay, or watched the video that you showed them from YouTube or Annenberg. And by the way, I got a huge thumbs up on Annenberg Media from you guys yesterday. Some of you had seen it before, not many had, and they just took some opportunity and really found Annenberg Media to be a huge thumbs up for asynchronous teaching. So those of you that didn't get a chance to go to learner.org and check it out, please do so. But on the synchronous side, you've got to prepare as though you're coming into a classroom, okay? Your lesson plans have got to be laid out. I've got my lesson plan right in front of me, off to the side, okay? So you all think I'm doing this off the cuff, and I'm not. But every detail that I want to cover in a synchronous session has to be laid out. I know most of us have turned our lesson plans and our syllabus, our lesson plans to our principal or our department chair to let them look at it and maybe give us some feedback. Department chairs and principals are going to have to really step up to synchronous teaching, okay? They're going to have to work with their teachers a lot closer to make sure that they're prepared to have the students do what it is they need them to do to have a successful learning outcome. And then, unlike the traditional classroom, when you teach synchronously like this, well, let me ask you, what's the one thing, additional thing, and we'll use the chat room for a second, what's the one additional thing that you have to do as a teacher if you're preparing to teach synchronously? What do you think? Keep kids interested. Absolutely. That's not what I'm thinking of, but that's a good one. Preview all. Oh, that's a good one, Susan. Excellent. Yes. Okay. Still not the one I was thinking of, but you're getting there. Stephen's getting there. Time management. That's good. Student engagement. Okay. Destiny's kind of right on the money with what, and she's about ready to scroll off the top. Make sure everything works. Okay. You have to be ready with a backup if something doesn't work. Okay. If the internet goes down, if the software package doesn't work, if you're asking your students to go out to a website that is no longer there, you don't have to worry about some of that stuff in the classroom. You just kind of, you kind of tap dance a little bit and move in a different direction, and you're off and running. But online, what happens if you get out there and your web camera doesn't work? Your microphone doesn't work, okay? And let's just stick with those two for now. I had a couple of students last night. They were doing their final presentations with me, a graded exercise. Matter of fact, almost half of their grade was that presentation. One of them logged in, and the first thing she did was kind of do like this on the video, okay? And did like this, and I guess she was pointing to the chat room. I figured that out after a second. And I looked into the chat room, and she said, "My microphone doesn't work." And I said, okay. This is a class on teaching online. What are you prepared to do? And she went, we used to call it the old, shuffle. Yeah, I don't know. And I said, well, you're the teacher. Your class starts in 6 minutes. That was her scheduled time. You better figure it out. Well, I tell you guys the same thing. You better have some sort of backup in whatever it is you have going on. And I'll show you the backup in Google and Zoom here in a second. And it's basically your telephone. If you have to, if a student has to, they can phone into your synchronous sessions. Obviously, if it's just the phone, they can't see your screen, they can't see you, but at least they can hear everything. So, unlike a traditional face-to-face classroom, preparation is the key to a successful synchronous session. I always ask my students to keep the cameras on. Okay. Hang on, we got another person coming in. Got him. Okay. I ask them to keep the video on. I do that for a couple of reasons. Unlike a traditional classroom, or like a traditional classroom, if you ask them to keep their video on, at least you can get a look at their facial expressions. I mean, that's how we get formative feedback on most of our students, isn't it? If we get a quizzical look out of somebody in the second row, we know they didn't get it, and we can spend a little more time. If they raise their hand, if they just start talking to their neighbor or trying to get something solved, those are all indications in a regular classroom of maybe we didn't get, we didn't explain it well enough. Well, the best we've got in a synchronous session are 120 snapshot photos that we can look at. And in some of these, like for example in Google Meet, I can't see all 120 of you at the same time. Okay. When I show you Zoom, they're a little bit different. They offer you a lot more thumbnail pictures like this. Some of you have turned off your camera, and in a synchronous session that you're going to teach with maybe 15, 20, 30, however many students you got, I wouldn't let my students do that. I want the video on. Okay. That's how I tell that they're still there. Okay. And I get some of my master's and doctoral students, they'll turn their videos off. And that's when I start asking them questions. Okay. And they don't like that. They don't like to be cold called. And, but I tell them, look, if you turn off your video, you better not be going out for dinner. I've got some students, I swear, they come in, they log in, they mute everything. And, I can tell because at the end of the class, when everybody says goodbye, I still got 2 or 3 people that are still logged in, right? And I'm going, where did you go? Why are you still logged in? They don't answer me. I know what they're doing. And so keep that in mind as you use your synchronous tools. Do a social check at the beginning of the class. Even for those students that are behavioral learners, they want to get going. They like it. You said you were going to start at 9 o'clock. Start at 9 o'clock, please. Okay. But you can start with kind of a, how's it going first? Okay. That little story I told you on Monday about the Northern Ireland teachers. We don't care what you know until we know that you care. All right. So that's a good tip for a synchronous session. Begin by telling students what you expect during this lesson. Okay. Take notes. You should have read the chapter first. We'll talk about that later when we talk about flipped classrooms. You should have watched this video already. This is what I expect. I expect you to make comments. I expect you to add to the discussion. Okay. And it's even better if you tell them that before your session in an email. Hey, we've got an online session tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Here's the link to the Google Meet site. And by the way, be sure you read chapter 3. Okay. And be sure you watch the video that's linked right here, because that's what we're going to discuss. There's a little bit of the entertainer in you when it comes to doing a synchronous session. I've had faculty, and we've all had teachers and faculty who get up in front of the class and they talk like, what was the name of that teacher on Wonder Years? He talks with a monotonous tone and he gives you the whole 50-minute lesson in a very, And those guys, you kind of want to just, nod off. With a synchronous session, they don't have to nod off. They can leave the meeting. They can mute their video, or they can just, they can make it look like they're watching when they're really not. So you got to learn a little skills of delivering lessons in an environment like this. If you do anything together, like later today, I'm going to show you like a video on the flipped classrooms. It's only about 2.5 minutes. So this is a good tip. If you're doing anything together, watching a video, excuse me, or a lecture, or an Annenberg site, you don't want to open up a synchronous session, click on an Annenberg video, and say, watch this video for the next 28 minutes. That's not an effective, successful synchronous course. I mean, you can tell them the day before, when you say what to expect, go watch this video now, okay? But it's okay to show them something that's like maybe 1 or 2 minutes long. Or maybe you want to share something in the textbook that may be a paragraph or two that you have them read together. That's fine. But a synchronous session is not a link to somebody else's expanded video. Okay? Periodically ask students a question, but in a synchronous session, you got to give them time to write their answers in the chat room. Okay? And so what I tell people, teachers in a chat session like this, is if I ask a question, let's say I want you to tell me what the most important thing that you learned about online assessment in Dr. Hansen's workshop yesterday, and put it in the chat room, okay? Well, there's going to be a lull as people type, especially if you type like I do, okay? I'm still the old two-fingered hunt and peck kind of typer, all right? And so you have to wait. And so what I tell my students is, look, if you're going to send me a response, start off by just sending me 4 X's, okay? A great little tip for you. Send me 4 X's, send me 4 hyphens, send me something that says, like when we get when we do a chat message on our phones, what happens, right? The three little dots come up, right? It says somebody is typing. So I know that something is coming and I'll wait for it. Okay. So that's a nice little tip for using the chat room and using it very effectively. Okay. Make sure that your students are muted when they're not talking. Okay. That's that just is common sense. And I'll show you in a second that in Google Meet, that as the host of the session, I can mute you. Okay. If I hear something in the background, okay, if I hear something in the background and I look over and I see that somebody's phone is on, all right, let's see something. Susan Hensel, unmute your mic. Okay, say hello.
Hi.
Okay, good. Yeah, Susan's been talking for the last 20 minutes, and I don't want to hear Susan anymore. Okay, so you can see that one of my options as the host is to go in and mute her. And it says here, mute Susan Hensel. Okay, only Susan can unmute herself. So I just muted her. I can mute her, but I can't unmute her. Okay. And so it's, again, another nice little tool. And all of the platforms that we're going to look at today have the ability for the host to do that. Now, Stephen can't mute Susan. Okay. So you can't be at each other, but but the host can. Now, the only problem with doing that is if Susan isn't paying attention to what I'm doing, she might not realize that she's been muted. And so I'm watching the video and Susan is still yakking away at me, and nobody can hear her, but she's got something really important to say, but she doesn't realize she's been muted by the host. I can't unmute her. So you have to be somewhat judicious with this kind of a capability. Okay. I think I told you, maybe I didn't. All these workshops are running together. But I had a student one time that I had done that too. She had logged into the site and her presentation was like in about 10 minutes, but she had kept her microphone on. So while another person was delivering or talking, I was hearing in her background, her phone was ringing, her dog was barking, her kids were hungry, it got very distracted. And so I muted her microphone. Well, that was great, except when it came time for her to do the presentation, she didn't realize it. And so she started doing her final presentation, and I am waving at her. I am putting stuff in the chat room. I am yelling and screaming, but she had muted me too. And she literally delivered an entire 15-minute presentation before she realized that nobody heard her. And so you got to be careful about certain kinds of capabilities. Okay, and then finally here, don't forget your synchronous toolbox. We are going to now get into the fun part of this session and look at some of the features of Google Meet, Zoom, and a package I'm going to call Ultra. It belongs to the Blackboard system. Okay, so now's the time to start looking at it. And here's what I want you to do. This worked real well the last time I did this presentation. I want you to take a piece of paper, okay, and I want you to make 4 columns across the page, okay, 4 columns. And in the first column, put the word features. Okay. And by the way, you're going to have to turn this in, and I'll grade it when this is for you, okay? So the first column, you write the word features. The second column, Meet, for Google Meet, not M-E-A-T, M-E-E-T, okay? The next column, Zoom. And the fourth column, Ultra. And as I show you all of these features, we're going to start with Google Meet. Start writing those down the left-hand side. And then put a little check box next to Meet. And then when we get into Zoom, if they have the same feature, maybe a little differently, then you can check that too. Okay? If Zoom has a new feature that Meet doesn't have, you can write that down at the bottom. You got the idea. Okay? We're going to make ourselves a little table here of features that can be used in these synchronous sessions. Okay? Now, I know you don't have Ultra, but again, I want to show you the kind of webinar package that comes in maybe a learning management system. But the other two, you have the ability to use. Now, your school district, like Robert Morris, may come out and say, we want you to use Google Meet. Okay? That's what Robert Morris says. That's why we're using Google Meet this morning. But you know what? If I need a feature that isn't in Google Meet, or it's not in there as easily as I know it is in Zoom, I've got my own Zoom account, and I'll use Zoom. Okay? And nada, is what I tell my department head, and she doesn't really care. Okay? And so, yes, Deanna, we are using Meet right now. Okay. And so let's take a look at some of these features. As you noticed, as you came into the session, and this will be your first feature. It's called a waiting room. Okay, a waiting room. And as you logged into Google Meet, the link, you also saw, or you got a notice that said, wait until you are admitted. Okay, and the host, and in this case, it was me or Dr. Hanson for her session. Whoever sets up the session becomes the de facto host, must literally let you into the session. So if you're doing a synchronous session with your third graders, or you're doing your synchronous session with your high school students, you don't want anybody in the session. So the waiting room for Zoom, for Meet, is really a nice feature. Okay. When you got 120 people in it, like we do this morning, it's a pain. Okay. Because I literally had to click on each one of you to let you in. And so you might put instead of a check under Meet for waiting room, you might want to put an asterisk. Okay. Because Aaron just asked the question I'm going to answer. Down at the bottom of your table, put a little notice there that says no options. Okay. You don't have an option yet in Google Meet to turn that off. Okay. But it's coming. Google Meet got enough people that were angry about this that I'm going to show you later a list of the features that Google Meet is now infusing into their platform, and that's one of them, to turn the waiting option off. Okay. Now, when I set up a meeting from my RMU account, which is what I did here, somebody like Mary Hanson does not have to be admitted because she's coming from the RMU account. So when she logged in, she came right into the session. You guys came from obviously outside of Robert Morris. But if you set up accounts, okay, when you set up accounts for your classes, if your students are using their Deer Lakes email account, they may not have to be admitted. They may just drop right in like Dr. Hanson did, okay? So just kind of that's why I said a little asterisk there, okay? All right, so that's the waiting room, and that's what gets you in. Let's talk for just a second, excuse me, about setting your room up for presenting. Okay, setting your own room up. I'm looking around, and I don't get a chance to, I can't see everybody's. Can we require that they be admitted? Yes. Yeah, that's what'll happen. Okay. And so I don't see everybody's picture. I just see like 9 of us right now. So I see Bobby and Stephen and Michael and Lisa and Susan and Kay and Dr. Mary Hanson and Josh. The rest of you, I don't see right now because I'm presenting. If I wasn't presenting, then I'd see almost everybody. Okay, but here's the issue. Okay, look behind you right now. Everybody look behind them. Okay, turn around. If there is a window back there, like with Susan, okay, she needs to move or close a drape. There you go. Okay. All right. Beautiful. It's much easier just to make a quick move. So there's no bright light behind you. Okay. That is what I was thinking. Desiree, okay, maybe. I don't see her, but I did see earlier there was a whole bunch of people. I even had Bobby move hers a little bit because she had this big old picture window right behind her, and it just washes you out. So think about that. Number 2, for a background, consider what is behind you. Okay, it doesn't have to be a blank wall. As a matter of fact, it's kind of nice if it's not. Okay, but don't put something back there that is distracting. Okay, like don't point your camera so that behind you is a door. Okay, and you got the kids walking back and forth, and that kind of thing. Okay. You can do what I do, because I guarantee you every time I get on a session like this, my phone will ring. It already did a little bit earlier. I don't know if you guys caught that or not. Unfortunately, my lovely wife, who is out there listening, but really not paying a lot of attention to what I'm saying, she has the phone. And so it usually doesn't ring more than once. Okay, so if you can disconnect the phone that's next to you, do that. Okay, it's just one less thing. I like to put something behind me, but a lot of times I don't. Okay, continuing on. So watch your background. Make sure it's, I had somebody that did a presentation one time and they were on the beach. Okay, I got no problem being on the beach to deliver a final presentation, but geez, don't show me the water. Don't make me sit there and wish I was on the beach instead of sitting in my house. Okay, I'm going to show you another feature here in a second that will help with that. Okay, if you move your mouse around, you get this bottom menu bar that shows up down here. And let's just go through some of these features. Over here on the left is a up arrow, and if you click on that, you get some of the details of the class. Okay, you might look at that and say, well, that's not really all that important, except yesterday I found out that I was in the wrong session for Dr. Hansen's class. I logged in about 10 minutes early, like you're supposed to do, and at 5 minutes beforehand there was nobody in there but me. Okay, and there's nothing lonelier than being in a synchronous session all by yourself. Okay, that means one of two things have happened. Number one, nobody cares about what you're going to talk about, or number two, you're in the wrong place, and it's usually number two. So I sent a quick email and said, what's your link? Because I guess I'm in the wrong one. Well, there's the link. And you can do a simple cut, copy, and paste into an email like Mary did, or Bobby, and send it right back to me and say, there you go. Okay. And I like that one too, Jennifer. She says she invites her students through an email. That is a great way to do it. Okay. But there's the link right there. You don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to look for it up here in the URLs. You don't have to go anywhere else. It's right there. Also, some of your students may not be able to access a computer for your lesson. Okay, they may be on the road with mom and dad, 100 different reasons. There is the phone number. So you should include that in an email as well, assuming you want to give them that option. I'll leave that up to you. But I've had some students that have said, look, I can't be there. I'm going to be on the road. I'm coming back from work. What can I do? And I say, well, there's the phone number. As long as you have a hands-free phone call, I don't want you trying to listen to my presentation with the phone up to your ear and driving at the same time. But there's the information you need. Makes it nice and simple and easy to use. Okay. You know how to mute. That's how you leave a call. We won't spend any time on that. This is how you turn off your camera. Not a problem with that. So we'll keep on going. One of the things that I really like about Google Meet, and this is a feature to put down the left-hand side, and that's the word captions. You can see that right here. Okay. If you turn on captions, Google does a 95% good job of laying out the captions here for you. Okay. I don't know if you can see this because it may just be on mine, but if you can see mine, it's now starting to capture the text. I love it. It's great. Okay. And it's not an add-on or a download or anything. It's just right there. Okay. So obviously, does it only do English? Who asked that question? Natalie. Natalie, turn your microphone on. Are you an English teacher? I mean, a language teacher?
Yes, I am.
What do you teach, girl?
Spanish and French.
Speak to me in Spanish, Natalie.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Keep going. Oh, there you go.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Oh, it got it. So now the next question is, does it translate it? And I think the answer is no.
That's fine with me. That's even better.
Yeah. Well, or what the kid can do is, if you're looking at my screen, I set up a tab over here. I go find me a translator in Google. Okay. And I cut, copy, and paste your Spanish words right into here, and I get the translation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you teach that to your kids. You're welcome. Okay, so that's the caption. Obviously, it's good for two things. Well, several things, but two for sure. Number one is it helps the students it helps us with accommodations. So if we have students that are that have hearing problems, hearing difficulties, there it is. You don't have to do what some of the rest of us do, which is capture your lecture and have it, have somebody put it into a script for you. It's right there. Okay, so that's beautiful. That takes a big problem for all of us. The other thing it does, when we were doing the cyber camp, we had an instructor from Pitt who was an international student. And wow, was she good. I mean, she was getting her doctorate in cyber forensics. And I was amazed at what she was able to share with these kids. But she was a little difficult to understand. Okay. Plus, she was using very technical terms. I turned on the captions, and the caption did a better job of understanding her accent and she was speaking English and good English, I mean, I would never want to go to Saudi Arabia and try to take the doctoral course, but she was in America and she was teaching and learning these things and doing a great job. But the caption actually did a better job of picking up her English words than I was. Plus, it did a great job of taking care of the technical terms. It did a fine job. So just as with Spanish or other languages, you guys and gals that teach math, it does a fairly good job of the Pythagorean theorem. Let's see if it picks that up. There it goes. You even picked up Pythagorean, and a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Let's see what it does with that. No, not too bad. It doesn't give me the exponential, but it's got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it does a fairly good job. And so I would suggest that this is a feature that I'm going to turn it off now. My kindergartens love trying to read the words, and beautiful. Exactly. You guys are the teachers. That's what's most important about all three of these workshops. I can show you some of the features. I can explain to you how to do things, but it's you as the teacher that that will make these things happen. So God bless you. Doing good. Okay, so that's the caption. Over next to that is presenting, and I just want to talk to this for just a second. Okay, I think I have actually a better slide that shows presenting. Actually, I don't. So only one person can present at a time. Okay, and so put down presenting as a feature, and Google sure has it. And it offers you several options. Okay, when you click on presenting, what pops up is you can present your entire screen. You can present a whiteboard. Okay, or you can present an application on your computer. So, for example, if you were looking at my PowerPoint, if I was presenting my PowerPoint presentation, and I didn't want it to take up the whole screen, which is what it does here, I could say, I only want to present an application, and I can bring up PowerPoint as the application and move it to the left side of my screen, and I could still have the right side of my screen to do something else. Okay? Presenting. Only one person can do it at a time, and only the host can give you permission to do it. Okay? So a student can't all of a sudden start presenting their screen. Thank God. Okay? So we have control over that feature. Hang on a second. I'm going to stop presenting a second so I can answer that question that just came up. Okay. My fault. I made a mistake. Meet doesn't give you the whiteboard option. Zoom will. I'll show you that in a minute. Meet gives you your entire screen or a window. Okay? So I can bring my PowerPoint up. I can move it to the left, and I can present just that window. They don't see what else is on my screen. Okay? Or I can present the entire screen. Okay? So if you want to write that down, presenting now is entire screen, window, and that's all that that Meet will do. When I show you Zoom, that will be a little different. Can you cut off a student presenter if something happens? Good question, John. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure, but I will check and find out. Okay, I think you can by taking away their ability to present. You can stop making them a co-presenter, but I'll have to check that and let you know. Okay, let me get back to what I was doing here. Okay, so in the present mode, you can see what's going on now. This is what's on my screen. Doesn't matter what I show you now. I can show you anything on my screen, and you'll see it. So let's continue on. Off to the right of you are presenting or presenting are three ellipses, three little dots. And when I bring that up, I'm going to show you just some of the features that that you're going to want to think about using here. First is, as you can see at the top, this is how you would start the recording or stop it. Okay, so I don't want to click that now because I don't want to stop this recording, obviously. Okay, I can change the layout. I usually use the tiled one, but you can use the one that creates a sidebar like this. Okay, or you can change the spotlight so that only what I'm showing you shows up. Okay, so changing the layout, not too difficult. Use whatever one you like. Another nice feature is the full screen. I'm not going to do that. You know what it does. It just simply expands it to the whole screen. Here's a new feature. I just found this one yesterday myself. Turn on the background blur. Try it. Not doing anything. I only see a few people, but Stephen, did you try it? Did it work? I can't hear you, buddy.
I have not tried it yet.
Oh, okay. It's not an option. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, then obviously it's an option only for the host, only for the person that's delivering this, not for the student. I actually like that better because I was afraid. Let me, I don't know what'll happen if I try it. Let me. Do you see me in a blur? Okay, well, that's what it looks like. I don't know if they're going to do that for everybody or just the host. I don't really like it, but it's an option, especially if you got kids running back and forth behind you or whatever. Okay, I had a student one time that's doing a presentation, and literally the kid was running from the bathroom to her bedroom after taking a bath, and I thought, well, maybe we better blur that a little bit, but you get the idea. Another nice little feature. Okay. There's some other features. You can turn on the captions from here. Don't know why you'd want to do that. But other options, but those are the key ones. Okay. Those are the key things. Now, as we got used to using this, you've already seen some of the other features. Okay. Things like, over here on the right was your screen for looking at the participants in the chat room. We've been in there a couple of times, so we're not going to spend much time, except to show you and make a point. 120 people in here, and notice how they sorted these names. They sorted them by the first letter of your first name. And for those of you that had come in like Mr. Petruska, no, it will not blur the other students behind you. Okay, like Mr. Nolker and Mr. Petruska and Mrs. Roundtree, you guys aren't here as Roundtree and Petruska, you're here as the M of Mrs. I don't like this, and I believe that they are looking to fix that so that we can sort them in different sequences as we want it, but it's not a feature now. So this makes it a little more difficult. Okay, if I'm looking for Roundtree, I can't go down. I got to know your first name, and even that doesn't help because you're calling yourself Mrs. Okay, so again, think about those features. Chat room, we certainly know how to use that. One of the features that I believe works. So put chat is one of your features, but put chat capture on it. When I am done with this presentation, when Dr. Hansen finished hers yesterday, we received a link to the video site. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, give me a second. Here's what you get was an email, okay, that tells me what the link is so that I can pass it on to you guys to watch it on your own. Okay, that's really all you get. If you want to capture the chat session before you log out, you can highlight everything in the chat session. You can open up a Word document. Maybe. Here it comes. And you can paste the chat session in there. So if there was questions that you had, there are ways to capture the chat session. Make sense to everyone? Okay. So, but you got to do it before you log out, because once you log out, ball game's over. Okay. It deletes the chat session and you're out of luck. Now, we'll see something in Zoom that is nicer than that in a few minutes. Okay. So that's basically Google Meet. Does anybody know of any other features that I haven't shown you that you think your fellow teachers would like to know? Jennifer, the answer is no. I can't show you breakout rooms in Google Meet. It's another one of Dr. Hansen's famous downloadable add-ons that is really not an easy feature to use. But I can tell you that Google Meet is working on this really hard. And Bobby Ann just said that. Breakout rooms being part of this will be released later this fall. Okay? Absolutely. But it's not there now. Put breakout rooms on your feature, and I'll show you how they do it in Zoom. Much easier. And that is one of the things that is my deciding factor on whether I use Meet or Zoom. If I want my students in breakout rooms, right now, I'm going to use Zoom. Okay, and I'll show you those in a minute. Okay, I wish I could scroll through to see everyone's face. Yes, me too. Me too, but you can't. Okay, the best you've got is this little window over here. Yes, Tracy, she said she saw another feature about recording attendance. Absolutely. It is another feature that Google, I mean, those guys got to be working 24/7 right now, trying to pick up on all the things that we need. And Megan is right. That is coming also. Okay. As a matter of fact, I might as well show you something right now. I was going to wait to the end, but assuming I can find it. Coming soon to Google. I found this on the internet yesterday. Okay. So coming soon to Google Meet. For those of you that say you want certain stuff. Breakout rooms. Okay. Breakout rooms will be launching in October. Yay. At that point, maybe Google Meet will do everything I want. Also launching in October, being able to track attendance in a virtual session. Okay. Now this says the ability to blur or replace backgrounds. Oh, Zoom can already do the replace backgrounds. It's really cool, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Google is trying to catch up. Okay, and Zoom is trying to catch up on same things that Google's doing. Okay, here's a new feature that says nobody can get into the session unless the teacher's there first. Okay, the ability to disable the chat feature, which is something I need to have in my class. It's fine to do it here, but you can see people can stop listening to you and go play around other ones. Launching later this year, somebody asked this question just a second ago. A feature to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Okay, and better polling options. Okay, those are all things you're going to see. Most of those, including a collaborative whiteboard in Zoom, that are not yet in Google Meet, but are coming. Okay, so talk about trying to catch up here. And I haven't seen anything yet that's announced any of these, which means I don't know how I'm supposed to know they're there unless I just stumble across them in a Meet session. So don't have any better suggestions for you than that. Any other questions on Google Meet? I didn't see anything else popping up about, recording. Very simple. Is the host, you can click on this icon right here, and it will be the top feature. If I'm not recording, it says start recording. Once you're recording, like I am here, then this turns to stop recording. And it's just as simple as that. Once your session is over, in about an hour, I would say within an hour or so, you will get an email that looks just like this one, and it comes from Google, and it says, here's the link to your Google video. Okay, so, and there's the actual video if you wanted to download that, but it's huge. A 2-hour workshop. Now, you guys won't be doing 2-hour classes, but a 2-hour workshop is about a half a gig. Okay, and so what we're doing is we're taking this video, we're downloading it to our computer, my computer, and then I'm uploading it to YouTube. Okay, and I'm turning it into a YouTube video, and we'll send you the YouTube link. Okay, so that you don't have to have a half a gigabyte video there. Okay, that is Google Meet. And if you will bear with me a second, I'm going to take you out and show you. Now before I do that, I want to stop my broadcast there, and that way I can turn on my video here. Okay. Welcome to Zoom, everybody. I set up a separate video, a separate website, a separate link to a Zoom session so that you can compare and contrast what is in Google Meet to what is in Zoom. Can everybody see me okay? Somebody say yes. I don't want to have to. No?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, good. All right. Now what I'd like to do is show you the features in Zoom and talk about the similarities and differences. Okay. So obviously I'm the only one in this Zoom session, but I will send you a link. Actually, the link, I believe, is in the PowerPoint presentation. Excuse me just a second as I get there. Come on, there it is. Okay, so you'll get this link and the password. And if you want to go out and play in there, you can do that. But Zoom is a feature that, like much of these things that we learn, was designed initially not for teaching, but for businesses. Okay, and so you can look at the features that they offer you here and say, you know, why would I use that, or when would I use that? But if you think about a CEO giving his presentation to a group of widely dispersed, branch managers, then maybe you'd be able to see this more in the context in which it was really designed. Okay, but let's look at the features. And now you can put an X in the second column if you find the same feature in Zoom as I showed you in the other one, in Meet. So first of all, you've got the mute, unmute, and the video. So those features are going to be standard regardless of what you're doing. Now notice I'm muted here. I'm muted here because I'm still talking to you through the presentation system of Google Meet. Okay, so unless I wanted all of you to log out of Google Meet and log into Zoom, I needed to be able to do that. If I were to unmute this right now, you wouldn't like the results. Okay, what would happen was it would be trying to pick up my microphone for both of those systems, and we'd get that screwy feedback that you get all the time, So that's why I kept it muted here. Also, I don't know if you noticed or not, but when I was getting ready to leave the Meet window, I turned off my camera. Okay, I turned off my camera in Meet so that I could turn it on in Zoom and you'd see me here. Otherwise, your web camera only works in one platform at a time. Okay, so this is a good technical tip for you that might be a reason why your video isn't working. Okay, so if you ever get online on something and your video isn't working, make sure something else is not using it. Okay, make sure another app isn't using it. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the features that are on the bottom of a Zoom window that are not or maybe the same as Meet. I'm going to start with participants. Now, this is a little different with participants, okay? But it does basically the same thing. One of the things that's nice about Zoom is if you click on a participant and you click on yourself, you can rename yourself. Now, you can't do that with Zoom. So with Meet. Rename is an option, a feature. It's not in Meet, it is in Zoom. So right down here at the bottom, if I was doing my kids, like you guys are doing, I may want to use, Mr. Tomei, and it changes that, allows me to rename myself. You can do it in Google Meet, but it's a bizarre way of doing it. You literally have to go out and change the name in your email and come back in. Okay, so much easier here. Okay, notice that when it comes to all the participants, and I'm the only one in here now, but you would all be listed in here if you came on, that I can mute you all, or I can unmute you, which wasn't a feature in Meet. Okay, so I think I mentioned the other day, or maybe I didn't, we use Zoom for our Knights of Columbus Council that we have, because we have a lot of old gentlemen that are trying as best they can to have a monthly council meeting online. And, they don't know how to mute. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to unmute themselves. These are a bunch of, 70, 75-year-old, 60-year-old men that don't embrace technology a whole lot. And so the host has a few more features here that you don't have in Google Meet, and that's one of them. Okay, I can also control the waiting room, which you can't do in Google Meet yet. That was one of the things they said they were going to do. So right now, I do not have the waiting room on. If you logged in, you would come in, you come right into the meeting. And so, I thought seriously about using Zoom instead of Google Meet for these workshops for that very reason. I had to click you guys in, 120 of you, one at a time. But with Zoom, you have that option. If you enable it, then you have to bring them in If you disable it, then they'll come in all by themselves. Okay, so very, very nice feature. And you do all of that with the participants. Okay. Now, if you have a question as I go through here, you can put it in the chat room and I'll go back and try to answer them afterwards. But if you want it answered right away, unmute your microphone and yell out, because I can't see you. Okay. I've got the Zoom window in front of my other window. Okay. All right. Continuing on, the chat room. The chat room is a little easier to access in Zoom. I mean, it's got its own icon down here rather than being up in a corner with the participants, but it works the same way. It has one feature that I think Meet didn't have. At least I don't think it did. And that is, I can type a message here and it goes to everyone. Or, assuming that we had other participants listed here, I could go down the list of participants and send a private email or a private chat to any one person. Okay, so private chat is a feature. I didn't see it in Meet. It's definitely in Zoom. Okay, so very much a nice option to have. It also can cause you some problems. If you get the students chatting with each other and not you, it can become quite a distraction. And I don't know if there's a way to turn off the chat all by itself. I don't think there is. Oh, yeah, I take it back. There is. A participant can chat with no one. Okay, so you just turn the whole thing off and the chat doesn't work. They can chat. Oh, this is beautiful. They can chat only with you. Okay, they can chat only with you. They can chat with everyone, and that's all they can chat with, which would be probably the best option. Or they can chat with everyone publicly and privately. So wonderful options here in Zoom. And again, if you think about the fact that this was done initially for a business and not a classroom, these all make sense. Here's another really valuable feature. Save the chat. You don't have to cut, copy, and paste it like we did with Google Meet. If you want to save that chat room, you click on that and it will record that the same way it's recording the video, and it will send you both files that way. Okay. I used to have a funny thing. Let me see if it's, oh, this is my favorite right here. See if you can, let me just move this out of the way a little bit. See if you can see this. This showed up in the Dilbert the other day. Okay. If they're chatting with their masks on, I thought that was terrific. I thought every conference I'm ever going to go to, I'm going to have my mask on again. I thought you guys would enjoy that. Okay, back to being serious. Share a screen. Now here is a share screen that is, I think, much better than Meet. And I'm sure they're going to be working on that. But look at the options you have. Here is the same one we had before, sharing the entire screen. Check mark under Meet, check mark under Zoom. Here's the new one, a whiteboard. If I bring this up, then I can draw, I can use text, okay? I can use a whiteboard in Zoom, and it's just that simple. Okay, I did not have that feature in Meet. And look at this one now. Only one participant can share at a time, or multiple participants can share simultaneously. So if you want to put your whiteboard up there, the students can actually, they can actually use the whiteboard too. You can all use it together. Again, a feature that we didn't have before. They have a special link for the iPhone and the iPad. Okay, so it actually reconfigures the screen. So instead of being wide and long like a laptop, these are, it becomes wide, narrow and tall for the iPhone or the iPad. Nice feature. The rest of these are the applications. So it shows you all the other things that you've got going on. And if you wanted to just show the PowerPoint presentation, you don't have to reduce the window. You don't have to try to fit it. It just shows PowerPoint. So in many, many ways, the share screen of Zoom will work nicely for you in certain circumstances. Okay? Continuing on. Closed caption works the same way with just about the same kind of options. Okay? And so I do like the Google Meet one better, but this one will work just as well. Okay? So it tries to capture everything that's being said, it's not as easy to use. Let me see. Assign someone to type. Assign a participant to type. Well, I don't know. That doesn't sound too user-friendly to me. I don't know. We'd have to practice that one a little bit more because it's not as simple. It doesn't do the same thing as the other one did, where it just pops into closed caption. So it's there, but it doesn't seem to work as well as the Google Meet one does. So you might want to put a question mark on your features there. Okay, breakout rooms. Yay! Here's what some people were asking about. Okay, breakout rooms. I'm writing myself a little note here so I don't forget to say something. You can create multiple breakout rooms. If you got group projects, if you got the students wanting to work together in teams, this is beautiful. Now, Google Meet will have it, but as you saw, it's not due until later in the fall. Okay? You want to create a room. I created 4 rooms, and all I have to do is when you click assign all of the students in your session, which right now is nobody but me, you can go down through and click on them one at a time. You know, Mike, Sally, Mary, and Tom, you are in room 1. Okay. Paul, Martha, you got the idea. You're in room 2. You can add more rooms. And then once you've got them all set, and of course I don't have any rooms because I can't assign anybody, but you just open the rooms and the students can go right from here into their rooms. It couldn't be easier. Okay. Also, as the host.
Question on the breakout rooms very quickly. Can you pre-set up those rooms so that they're ready to go? That's number 1. And 2, can you pop in and out of those rooms?
Okay, and the answer to both of those questions is yes. Okay, you can set up these rooms before your session even starts. Okay, and then you can have the participants come back to the main room at any time, or you can close them out after a certain amount of time. So you can say, look, I want you to discuss this for the next 10 minutes. And after that, the room's going to close and they'll come right back down. Okay. You can set the timer to close. If you set them in there for 10 minutes, that's 600 seconds. So I don't know how that's going to work. We'd have to try that one out. Oh, I know what you could do. You could set a clock, a countdown for the last 60 seconds. That's what that's for. So if you told them they're in there for 10 minutes, a minute before it's over, they're going to get a 60-second countdown clock, after which, the breakout room will close. So yes, very, very versatile. Okay, so you can recreate these. You can do it automatically. You can do it manually. You can do it before the session starts. And what you do is what we just did. You set up the rooms, but you don't open them. Okay, so the rooms are all set up, and you tell the students what rooms they're in, and then you say, okay, now's the time to go. You click open all the rooms, and you're off and running. They can't get in there until you click that. Okay, any other questions? Zoom will probably be, now again, this depends on your school policy. I'm not telling anybody to do anything, but I'm telling you, for me, if I'm going to use breakout rooms, this is where I go. Okay, I won't use Google Meet, I'll use Zoom. Okay, another little feature over here on the right is some reactions. Okay, they're kind of primitive. You can have people clap their hands, or you can send a clap hand to somebody's response, or you can ask people to give you a thumbs up in response to a question. Okay, not great. I know they're working on more polling. They call this polling features. They're working on more polling features right as we speak. Okay, so I believe I have covered the things that I wanted to cover in Zoom. Here's how you end. And other than that, I think you're going. Okay. Records the same way. We showed you that. We showed you the chat. We showed you participants. Okay. So again, now you've got yourself a little table of two platforms that that you can use. Now, let me throw out one more stipulation, maybe the kicker for you. Okay, right now, and remember, Zoom is for businesses. That's who their target market was. It was not teachers. And so right now, for you to create a Zoom session like I just did here, you have to go on to zoom.com and you have to create an account. Takes you 5 minutes at the most, but you have to create a Zoom account. And once you do that, then you can create a session. It works very nicely. It's quite easy. Except right now, Zoom, who, remember, I think I told you the other day, one of the mistakes I made when all this pandemic started was I didn't buy Zoom stock, okay, which is now way higher than it was in March. They're out to make money. Google, not so much. And so if you create or want to create a Zoom account, listen to this now. This needs to be one of the features. You are limited to 40 minutes. Anytime you have more than 4 participants in the session, which is like every time, right? So 4 participants, 40 minutes. Maybe this will work fine for you. Maybe it won't. Okay, if you got a 40-minute class session, then you can put your 40 students or 30 students or 20 students in here. Okay, if you have got an hour-long time slot, Zoom is probably not an option. Google limits you to 250 participants. And I've seen, we had 120 in here today, and really does an excellent job. Costs you nothing. If you want more Zoom people in, you got to buy it. Okay, and I don't know how much it is. You could go look. I'm not sure how much it's going to cost you to do a Zoom presentation, but if you're a business, you don't care about that. You want 250, 300 people. I heard Zoom can do 500 without a problem. Google will do 250, and that's where they're going to cut you off no matter what. Okay, so again, advantages and disadvantages. All right, I am going to stop my video. I'm going to end my session. I'm going to, now I don't know if you noticed this or not, but in my Zoom session on my computer, it captured my whiteboard that I was using. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, and then let's come back here. Before I show you the last one, any questions? Any questions on Zoom? Let's see. You can take notes in your breakout room. Tammy, that's exactly right. How can you set up rooms if participants are not present? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if you can. So I guess maybe you can't be too proactive. I got to check that one out, Angela. That's a great question. As the host, how do the breakout rooms work? Can you monitor the rooms? Yes, you can go in and out of any, as the host, in and out of any of those breakout rooms anytime you want. But that's a really good question. I know you can set up, I will find the answer to that, Angela and everybody, and I will send it to you. Okay. All right. Now, I want to send you, or I want to show you the last room that you're not going to have access to it, but I still want you to see a webinar. Okay. Zoom is not really meant to be a webinar. Google Meet is not meant to be a webinar. You probably have seen webinars before, and they're set up a little bit differently. And I wanted to show you them, well, simply because they have some additional tools that might make it worthwhile to use a webinar for what you're doing. Probably not for the classroom, but I still wanted you to see it. This is a package called Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. It's the webinar system that's built into Blackboard. When you spend your $300,000 for everything else they give you this feature for synchronous teaching. It's what I use with my teachers. And notice it's the tab, and it looks a lot like the other tabs that we have been looking at. So we'll go through this one fairly quickly. Okay, notice that here we go, that I can record. Okay, so all of these, if you're doing the option, hang on a second. Let me bring my back up. If you have been taking care to use the table for the options off to the right, recording, yes, you can record. And it will pick up everything for you just like the other ones did. So it's not really any different. But look at here. This is a webinar. This is supposed to be way more interactive than a Zoom meeting, which is just primarily meant to be a one-way thing. You know, the CEO talking to his branch managers. Okay, Google Meet, same kind of thing. The teacher talking to the student. Sure, the student can interact, and I showed you how to do that. But with a webinar, this is designed to be much more interactive. So if you look, and let's see if I can, I think that's about as big as I can make it. You have the three features down here that we're used to seeing. Okay, this one is the participants, so it shows you, they call it attendees, but it's exactly the same thing. Okay, here's how you mute your mic, and here's how you turn your web camera on and off. But notice here for the participants that there's a lot more feedback that are available for each of the students. They can go down here and you can ask them a question like, you know, am I going too slow in this presentation? Or am I going too fast? And they can click on, you know, faster or slower. Okay. They can let you know they're surprised or confused, happy or sad. If they have to be away for a minute, they can click away so you don't ask them to participate. Hopefully they're not way too long. Or you can ask them if they can agree or disagree. Okay? So if those are the kind of features you need for a session that you're going to do, a webinar package like meeting is another one. Conference meetings, webinars, those might be options for you. Okay? Notice over here also that here somebody asked this question, and we saw that this is a Google upgrade coming in. Excuse me. And that's the ability to raise and lower your hand. Okay? So when I use this in my class, I tell students, look, if you got a question, click on the little person there. It will raise their hand. It'll put that little purple person right next to their name over here, and it will give me a bong. Okay? So if I'm off doing something else and there's a question behind me, if they click raised hands, it bongs. I know there's somebody there with a question, and I can come back to it. Nice feature, but again, a lot more interactive than Meet or Zoom. Okay. These features over here in what's called the Collaborate panel, very similar to Google Meet. Okay. Here's the chat room. You've seen that many, many times. Here's the link to share content like you've seen with both of the other two, except notice here, I wanted to point out, okay, that here is the entire screen. You can share a window. We've seen that before. And you can share a tab. We haven't seen that before. Google owns Chrome. Okay. They're going to make this tab for the iPad. They're going to make this tab for third-party packages like this one. It's easier with this Collaborate to share the whiteboard. Okay. Or you can share the application. You can share your camera, or this is a new one. You can share files. So if you want your students, when you're done with this, when you're in these sessions, you want to send them a file. Maybe you want to send them a Word document or a PDF that you want them to read right now. You can do that very, very easily with Collaborate, whereas with the other two, you're probably going to have to send them an email with an attachment. Okay? The thing that's really kind of cool with this is the polling feature. Okay? Look at all the options you have with polling. Okay? You can ask them either multiple choice or true-false questions. So you type a question in here. What is the closest planet to the sun? Answer number 1, Earth. Answer number 2, Mars. Answer number 3, Pluto. Answer number 4, Neptune. You click on Start, and it shows up like this on each of the students' screens. And they pick A, B, C, or D, 1, 2, 3, or 4. When they click on it, okay, when they click on it, the numbers pop up or updated automatically. So you ask that question, the correct answer is Mars, which was number 2, but you only got 3 out of your 25 kids that answered number 2. The rest of them are all over the place. Well, you know you didn't teach it right. Okay? So the polling is much more useful. You can do multiple choice or true false, and the numbers pop up right here. The students can also see them later if you click another button that says show answers to students. Okay? So I really like the polling feature in a package that is more meant to be a webinar than a communications device. Okay, and then the next option, breakout groups, again, very easy to set up, very similar to what Zoom is doing. Okay, so that is the 3 most effective ways of teaching online synchronously. Showed you 3 platforms. I'm going to say this as I tell all my students, you know, I showed you some features in one that may not be in the other. But you know what? You can work around with technology doing anything you want to do pedagogically on any of those three platforms. They are wonderful platforms to teach synchronously. Google Meet, I use it all the time. I might use it in conjunction with an email that I sent to somebody, but Google Meet can do everything that you needed to do synchronously. And you saw the new features coming out that that it's going to have hopefully very soon. They're going to have to compete with Zoom. I would consider using Zoom if I wanted to do a breakout room. Other than that, I'd be happy with Google Meet. So there you are. There are some of the tools that I showed you this morning that we talked about. And I just want to kind of recap this now by talking about how we can blend all these things together. Okay? How can we put all of these things in an online course? And that's really what we're talking about. A good online course will have asynchronous pieces to it and synchronous pieces to it. You looked at all host of tools yesterday for asynchronous, and here are some possibilities for tools in a synchronous environment. Create a synchronous chat room. Let's get in there and let's talk among ourselves. Okay? Sharing applications. Not just you as a teacher, but you can have students do this as well. And it is so effective. Students are very good at delivering projects, at telling you how their group project went. Okay? Breakout groups, very, very useful. And then you got a full range of classroom presentations that you can now do together. Okay? If you got a PowerPoint presentation, you can record it in a Google session. Okay? You record it so that if a student is not there, and this answers a question I asked almost at the beginning, what happens if a student can't make a synchronous session? You record it. Okay? You send that student a link, and you require that student to do a couple-page paper for you, 1, 2, 3 pages, in which they express to you their understanding of the session. Okay? They can't do that unless they watch the session. And I got to tell you, this is one of the things that still concerns me a little bit. I can record the session. And even in something like Blackboard, I can tell who is there for that recorded session. So I know who wasn't there. But when I send them the recorded video, I have no way of finding out whether they ever watched it. Okay? It doesn't track who watched a recorded video. And that drives me absolutely nuts. I've been at Blackboard for the last 2 years because they can tell me who was in a scheduled session, but they can't tell me who watched the recorded session. I said, I got to have that as a teacher. I got to have that. I got to know that the student actually watched the video. Okay? And so that's one of the things that's still on my list of things to get them to do. But you can use PowerPoints. You can use some of the asynchronous tools that we learned yesterday, things like video lectures with Screencast-O-Matic. Okay? You can show them and share them websites with virtual tours. And then another thing that I really like to use synchronous sessions for is to have my students access professionals. At the end of one of our doctoral classes, we have a synchronous panel where we bring in the provost, we bring in the registrar, we bring in the CFO, the financial guy, we bring in the student vice president, we bring in some of the top university administrators into this synchronous session, and we have them talk to our students about what the field of higher education is all about. It's a very, very effective tool. You don't have to be the only one that becomes the sage for your students. You can bring in other people as well. Okay. We talked about some suggestions for synchronous learning. We're in good shape. I want to end this workshop by just talking a little bit about the flipped classroom. I'm going to send you this PowerPoint, and here's a really good video. I think the video only takes maybe a couple of minutes, but I don't know if I want to take, I'll bring it up real quick. Come on. Okay, it's a YouTube video. And
I'm sick and tired of being taken
after we watch the video,
Joe Biden's ban on fracking will put me and everybody I know out of work. We're not asking
another
for
reason
money.
perhaps to download
Joe Biden,
a video. Okay, but this is a fun little video
traditional classroom
on the flipped classroom.
Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions of students. Every night, millions of students sit over the exact same homework, trying to figure out how to solve it. The flipped classroom is turning this upside down. Traditionally, students listen to lectures and take tests in class and read textbooks and work on problem sets at home. In flipped teaching, students first study the topic by themselves, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class.
That's what I want you to take away from this. The flipped classroom is taking part of the lesson and sending it home with the students, the kind of part of the lesson that you would lecture, okay? Or you would read from a textbook. And it allows you to spend the classroom time that you have expanding on it, demonstrating, creating more knowledge about it, applying it. Remember those upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy? Evaluating it, synthesizing it, analyzing it, applying it. Okay? So the flipped classroom, excuse me, using many of the tools that we talked about today and yesterday, can become your way of flipping your classroom. It can be the way of taking those materials and giving them to your students so that you can spend the precious time you have in class not having them understand or know the knowledge material, but being able to do the higher order thinking. So that's the way I wanted to end the session. Okay? Flipped classrooms, blended learning, those are all, 21st century terms that you guys are using now in the classroom to deliver instructions in a little bit different way. Okay, I think I'm done, Bobby.
I think everyone's head's probably swimming.
Yeah. Any questions for me? Any comments you'd like to throw in there? Either about what we talked about this morning or the 2 sessions from yesterday. Everybody happy? Well, like I said at the beginning of this on Monday morning, you guys have got a unique academic year coming up. We all do. I hope to God, I still pray every day that we get ourselves back in the classroom as soon as possible, so that our kids, we all know, this group knows better than any what the advantages of being in a classroom are. And but until that day can happen, or even perhaps in support of those. I hope me and Dr. Hansen have given you some tools for using all the possible things that you can do to help all your students learn. That's really what we're here for, why we came. So with that, I'll say thank you. I'll turn it back to Bobby if she has any final comments. And I hope I get a chance to get up to Deer Lakes on the football field someday once again. I've been up there a couple of times. I love your area. It's just a beautiful part of the country up there. And I hope to get back on the football field sometime in the future. But
We hope so too. Thank you, Dr. Tomei. I know this was a lot to absorb today. And again, a lot of you were asking in the Zoom or in the chat about Zoom. And I did check with Justin, and he said that definitely does cause some issues with bandwidth. That's why we'd prefer to stick with Google, just so that, and I even saw some teachers that commented and said that Zoom did cause bandwidth problems in their own homes. So, I think, you could try it, but we definitely would rather stick with Google just because of those issues. So hopefully these are some tools that can help you with this new school year. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the next few weeks here before we start. So thank you today for everything.
God bless. Do something with this now. Otherwise, if you don't look at this again for 6 weeks, you're going to go, I don't remember anything you told me. So you got to apply something. Go out, find a Google Meet, create one, and play with it.